Hello and welcome to this video on the UK supermarket industry. I'm going to look at this as an example of oligopoly and a variety of topics that we're going to apply this situation to for the micro exam. So this is a classic oligopoly, a few firms dominating the market. We can see on the right these are some of the market shares. This is the most recent data we could find here in April 2026, and you can see those top three supermarkets: Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda. But those sort of German retailers who come in, discount retailers come in, Aldi and Lidl now sitting quite prominently in that list. You can calculate from this a concentration ratio, either 3 firm or 5 firm, and it shows a clear oligopoly where firms are pretty interdependent. So any strategy or pricing strategy or advertising that supermarkets do, their success, that will depend on what other supermarkets do. So there is that uncertainty there in the oligopoly. You're probably aware of all these different supermarkets. So obviously Tesco is the market leader, mass market, full range of products, strong brand loyalty, the club card scheme, and quite a lot of and very strong online delivery. Sainsbury's more a mid-market grocer, balancing quality and value. That's sort of not going for premium end, but not going for discount end. And it's a large network of stores, and they do have their online deliveries as well. Asda, we came over from Walmart in America. They're more value focused, heavily competing on price, promotions to get those budget customers. Now Morrison's was more a regional operator in the north, but now is more a national chain. They're vertically integrated with their supply chains, especially their sort of marketplace, sort of fresh food and veg that they have in their stores. And then the final one is Waitrose, and as you know, that is targeting that premium end with the high-income consumers, more luxury good, income elastic demand, quality, service, provenance, those sort of things that they're sort of focused on. As you know, Aldi and Lidl have obviously entered the market. Just put the dates there for them. So Aldi in 1990 and Lidl in 1994. Slowly building their presence in the 1990s, but accelerated more rapidly in the mid-2000s. That's where they really saw having an impact on the supermarket industry in the UK. We know they've got a low price strategy. That's partially due to the limited range, private labels, not having all the brands in there, no frills stores, making sure staffing is very efficient logistics, all that sort of low-cost model to try and compete on price. And that has been successful in the sense they've grown their combined market share from under 5% to now nearly 19% in recent times. It was announced in April 2026 that Lidl now, for the second month in a row, has been joint 5th supermarket in terms of market share with Morrison's, and Lidl has been 4th for a while, above 10%. But they've changed the dynamics massively, as we'll see in the supermarket industry. Other ones, other entry, which could be indicating some contestability here. You can enter the market with different ways. Obviously, add a little of that through discounts, providing that sort of end of the market. Ocado, joint venture with Marks and Spencer's, doing online delivery. So they've entered the market. Pretty good coverage across the country. And so they're sort of online only delivery service. And Amazon Fresh, who did a similar thing with online delivery and pickup service, they also launched Amazon Fresh stores. There's 20 of those, but they've closed them, or closed most of those at the start of 2026. So focusing on their deliveries, or potentially converting those into whole food stores. Now, I mean, in the 2000s, I mean, there was quite a bit of consolidation of the industry. So we saw some takeovers being allowed by the Competition and Mergers Authority, or the Competition Commission at the time. So Morrison's taking over Safeway. That's when Morrison's did be a more national chain rather than focused just in the north. And Co-op took over Summerfield in 2009. And at that time, sort of created the 5th biggest supermarket. And the idea there was having another bigger supermarket to compete with those top supermarkets was a good thing for competition. Now, we've seen more recently that this idea of Sainsbury's and Asda merging, and they would have had like over 30% of the market, that was blocked with the view that it would reduce competition. So They've sort of allowed some some consolidation in the industry, and now potentially this could be a constraint on growth for supermarkets. It will be difficult to get further horizontal integration happening. There were some other external growth examples. So Tesco Booker, so they're a massive wholesaler. So that was on the vertical integration side. And Sainsbury's taking over Argos and integrating those into their stores to try and get that synergy benefits of diversifying there into more of the household items and putting some sort of Sainsbury's items into Argos and vice versa, and trying to get more click and collect customers. So therefore, organic growth has been a bigger focus than external growth in recent years, and that's how Aldi and Lidl have done it, right? They've done this by opening dozens of stores each year. You can see this is from January, opening 19 more stores, 640 new jobs from Lidl and creating more stores. We're seeing quite a lot of this in terms of Lidl and Aldi making these announcements. And then also the big four supermarkets have not been doing that. There has been some changes, some more convenience stores opening to try and target that market, but more refurbishing stores, looking at online capacity as ways to grow organically rather than more stores per se. And one of the big things that Aldi Lidl have done is they did sort of intensified sort of price competition in the market. Now, even before Aldi Lidl became really more dominant or increased the market share, there was still quite a lot of price wars between the big four, heavy discount, trying to lost leaders to get people into the supermarket. So it wasn't just Aldi Lidl, but that their prominence in the 2010s and 2020 really forced this shift to everyday low pricing and major price matching schemes between the supermarkets. At that point, it was a big challenge for the established order. And the cost of living crisis also, similar thing, significant price competition to try and retain customers. So you can see this is an article from last year and how it's sort of saying that it could be up to £400 million that it could cost as they announce major price cuts, Asda and Tesco looking to match those. But of course, non-price competition is therefore quite an important way to compete. So you're aware of some of these things. So the loyalty card schemes is quite common. Online delivery, number of delivery slots being offered, and the convenience of those apps, and how easy it is to get good food to people at their doorstep, along with click and collect. So different delivery options available. But product range and quality as well. You're obviously seeing this at the higher end with the quality, but also people's own brand products or their finest ranges, and also just some sort of product differentiation through that as well. So the range of products, but also therefore differentiating between them. There has been significant monopoly power in supermarkets. It's been a big issue, and they're using this to reduce their variable costs as they're going to negotiate, especially with dairy farmers, their prices down. This is also an example of purchasing economies of scale, these two concepts overlapping. You can see on the right them driving down their marginal cost and average cost to get more profits. But this has obviously had a massive impact on the dairy farmers themselves. So they obviously were making a loss. There's been thousands of them that have left the market. So this has been a big damage to the dairy industry, and therefore this has been caused by the price dropping below the average cost of the firm. And here you can see this is one where they would shut down in the long run if it continues to operate in that way. So it's kind of a way to illustrate those monopoly power benefit for supermarkets, but hit here for dairy farmers. And that's why the grocery conduct adjudicator was probably brought in. They've reduced the code of practice in 2010 and set up the GCA to sort of regulate it in 2013. They have powers to investigate. They can require changes and reforms from the supermarkets not meeting the code, and fines up to 1% of UK turnover. They've not really used that power of fines yet. But you can see these are the three examples they've had: Co-op and Tesco, 2015, 2018. So delaying supply payments, delisting practices, not giving notice of this, late contract changes. So not always about price necessarily. And some of these investigations, the code of conduct is really putting pressure on their suppliers by not giving that certainty of telling them when they're going to put their products or take their products off the shelves, and also delaying supplier payments could have significantly affect their cash flow. Amazon Fresh also has warned over delisting products and supplier treatment as well. And you can see most of these have been asked to reform their practices. There was compensation needed for suppliers from the co-op situation as well. And one of the things in terms of the labour market for supermarkets is the fact that they're paying above the minimum wage. Aldi and Lidl, again, is one of the things that they've driven, this sort of high minimum wage, trying to retain their staff and trying to attract staff to their stores. You can sort of see why they're doing this, obviously to attract staff in this sort of tight labour market when there's maybe a shortage of workers who are available. And also they want to reduce labour turnover because it's going to save them training and recruitment costs. And if you're an Aldi and Lidl, then of course you want to keep your costs low as possible. And as a brand image, benefits of paying high wages to your workers potentially as well. And this is sort of why Aldi and Lidl did this, but other big supermarkets also followed suit. They need to try and attract those workers. You can see from February this year, Aldi workers receiving 2 pay rises this year, and there's some figures there about how much they're being paid to try and attract people to Aldi because they're paying the highest of all the supermarket staff. Now this has led to rising costs for supermarkets, but it's not the only rising costs. So things from the recent budget, the rising national insurance contributions, the plastic packaging tax, and the rising food prices and energy prices through the Ukraine war crisis and the Iran war more recently. However, due to inelastic demand, you can see that supermarkets may be able to pass on these higher costs in terms of higher prices and therefore maintain or increase their profits. There's something from the National Farmers Unions that have obviously warned that food prices are likely to rise due to conflict in the Middle East. So this is sort of a very recent example of rising costs as well for supermarkets. And there was some talk about whether there is tacit collusion. So they were looking at, the CMA were looking at whether there was price gouging, whether sort of putting the prices up and exploiting the situation following the Iran war. They found no evidence of this and broadly unchanged in terms of their profit margins. There's also probes into maybe tacit collusion for food and for fuel prices during the cost of living crisis. You can sort of see the last paragraph there talking about said evidence suggesting at least one supermarket had set a higher target for its margin on fuel prices, which could have led to rivals following suit and raised prices too. Well, that's tacit collusion. These aren't really overt collusion, but this is where market leaders might be able to put the prices up. And so this idea of their profits were going up, is that due to tacit collusion or just passing on the costs to supermarket customers due to the inelastic demand? So that's a potential issue. Okay, well, that's all in terms of supermarkets. I hope that was a useful overview for you all.